Well, another day has dawned on this Martin guitar project. I am getting ready to make a new bridge. I'm going to allow about a 1/16 of an inch in front of this. Then I'm going to take this thick pencil lead and draw a pencil mark behind here. And I'm going to leave the whole mark, so that'll be another 1/16 of an inch roughly. So it's going to be, approximately an 1/8 inch bigger this way, but that's not really huge. This is kind of a small bridge to begin with, so that's, in my opinion, perfectly okay. It's also just a teeny bit longer on each end, but not very much longer, just a little tiny bit. In fact, if I bucked on one end, I would say, it's not even, it's not an 1/8 of an inch. I'd say 3/32 or something like that. It's about much length of it. But that's the length of this piece that I had, and it's a perfect piece of ebony. So we'll make a new bridge and get started on that right now. To make this bridge, I wanted to see how thick this one was first, and this one's about 310 thousandths or so, depends on how you measure it, so roughly 310. And I went and measured some factory bridges, and to my surprise they were anywhere from 350 to 400, so they weren't real consistent. So I'm going to shoot in the middle and go about 375 on this one. That should be pretty good. That's about a 3/8 of an inch thick, I believe. 375 if I'm not mistaken. So that's what I'm going to shoot for. And we can always plane it down some if we need to, but that's where we're going to start. Well, I've got this roughed out pretty good. Looks very similar, as you can see. I left these ends 10 thousandths thicker than they were on this, which isn't very much, but every little bit matters on the stiffness, so we're going to leave it just a little bit stiffer. Now we're going to cut off the back, how this is rounded off here. So I think I'll rough it out with the finger plane, and then I'll take it over to the sander to fine tune it. But you can knock off quite a bit with the finger plane and do it fairly quickly. And of course, no matter which way you start, it'll always want to be carved the opposite way because that's just the way wood is. Alright, that'll knock off the biggest part of it. Now I'll just take and round that off on the disc sander and make that look real nice. Well, I've just spent a lot of time hand finishing that, sanding it and everything. It looks really, really good. Of course, we don't have any holes or slot in it yet, but that's the way I want it right now. I don't want to do all that. I might put the holes in it, but I'm still debating on that even. I'm going to get it down and look at it and decide whether I want to put the holes in it now or put the holes in it after I get it on the guitar, because I want to get the intonation right, and then I don't want the holes to be too close to the saddle and so forth. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it yet, but I have a feeling I'll go ahead and mark it and drill the holes. But I want to kind of look at it all in the package form here. Trying to make sure I cover as much of the scar as possible, get the bridge in the right location, of course, and get it square to the center line. So that's really perfectly square to the center line there. I've also checked it this way to get it centered and just to see, and it's pretty close. About right there's probably better. Just double checking everything before I mark it in place. I think we're just about where we want it right there. You only get one chance at these things, and that's why you really want to take your time and get it right. So what I'm wanting to do here is mark around it, and I don't want to mark around it till I know I have it exactly where I want it and it ain't going to move. I think that's about as good as I can do right there, so I'm going to go ahead and trace around this with a sharp knife and cut all that finish away. Well, I've got my scalpel here. As I've said before, the new X-Acto blades are not impressive. I really don't like what they've done to them. But the scalpel blade is pretty sharp and it's more durable. That ought to do it, I would think. It's going to be fun cleaning that up. I'll get it all cleaned up and show you what it looks like when I'm done. Well, quite honestly, this area here is chewed up pretty good. There's lots of splits and cracks, and I'm thinking that, you know, I could just get glue back in all these things and glue it down and it'd be just fine, and it probably would be. But I'm also having thoughts that I'd like to clean it up and make it even better. And I really think that it would actually be better if I just took and routed out the bridge area here by about 40 thousandths thick. Now keep in mind it's probably about 100 thousandths thick, so 60 thousandths would still be there. And then put in a 40 thousandths veneer, like right on top of this, you know, piece of good spruce. And I really think that would make this a whole lot stronger and, you know, just make it a better job. And I'm really thinking that might be the way to go. I don't know, I'm still debating on it, because there's lots of little chips missing out of this, and you know, this is the second time it's been off, and I'll be quite honest with you that when I did it 15 years ago, I did the best I could, but it was really, really hard to get it off. I remember that specifically, that it was one of the hardest ones I ever did to get off. And so it's chowdered up pretty good. And I really think that while I've got it off here, I kind of think it would be better to just get rid of all this chowder marks and just put a good solid piece of wood all the way across there, clamp that down, get it perfect, and then put the bridge back over it, and we're just that much better off. Boy, I don't know. It's a lot of work to do that. There's no question about it. It'd be a lot of work, but I think in the long run it'd be the better job. I've got my router set to take off exactly 40 thousandths out of this area, and I just think that'll be a cleaner job by the time we're done. So here we go. I might be wrong, I might regret it, but you just got to do what you got to do, you know. So here we go. That's a scary process, but you know what? I really think that was the way to go. Even that, there's still some minor splintering back under here and everything, but it's minor now, and we've got a good flat surface to glue everything to, and honestly, this is the way to go in my opinion. We'll fill that back in with a real high-grade quality spruce. It'll just be fine. There won't be any problem. The only problem right now is just cleaning it up enough to get it perfectly straight, where like this will fit. I want this to be able to basically fit in there, and then I'll fit another piece of spruce down in there, and it almost fits in there as it is. There's just, it needs to be cleaned up a little bit, and I'll probably clean that up with a chisel, like right across this front edge was the hardest part. It's kind of chewed up and it's a little hard to see the line, so it's probably better to just do this by hand and get it just right rather than try to route it and maybe not get it right. I just feel much better about the good flat bed there now. Now this probably still won't quite fit down in there, but it's pretty close. Pretty dang good right there. I think I'm going to go with that and just go ahead and fill it in, and we'll fill that in with spruce, and then we'll move on from there. So I can put the grain back exactly like it was. I'm going to cut this out this way. The grain will be running the same exact direction. Everything will be the same. It's just that it'll be a lot more solid. I'll go cut that out, then we'll make it real thin. Well, I really couldn't even begin to tell you how many iterations it took to get that to fit that tight, but it's absolutely airtight, and I don't even know how I'm going to get it out of there. It's really as close to perfect fit as you'll ever see. It's there it is. I think I'm going to thin it down just a hair more. It's I left it just a tiny bit thick to work on it. This is routed down to around 40 thousandths or so, and this is a little bit proud of that. So I'm probably going to take a couple more thousandths off this before I put it in there. Okay, I think we're ready to go. I've got it fitting in there as tight as it can fit. And I'm going to paint this over with glue real well. You really couldn't get it any better coverage than the way I'm doing this. And this goes like this, so I'm going to take this extra glue and put it on here and make sure I get it covered really well. Okay, that's pretty much 100% coverage on both parts, and now I can stick it down in there, and it's going down in there perfectly. It's absolutely airtight. And now I'm going to wipe off the extra. Wipe her down really good because I don't want the glue on there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this more or less as a caul, and I mean I could go ahead and just go ahead and glue it down, I guess. Probably could just do that. I don't know, I'm tempted to, but I think I'll wait because this might swell up, and I think it is swelling up, and I might want to trim this down yet. So I think I'll just wait, and I don't want to get in any big hurries, and I'll let this set for a few hours, and I'm going to get some clamps put on here. I'll show you what that looks like here. Well, I've got a large caul on the inside. I'm using the bridge itself as the caul on the outside, and you can see the glue squeeze out there around the edges. and I'm just going to clean that up. It's coming out pretty good. That's a good thing. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of pressure on these now. Not very much on those yet. I'm going to get these other clamps on here. At least attempt to. That's really squeezing the glue out. See, that's what I want. I want to really get it perfect. I'll feel much better about this now that that bridge plate area has been cleaned up and it's good and solid again. It won't be, there's no cracks and loose spots, and it'll just be really good. Use the same kind of wood. The grain pattern didn't match perfectly, but you'll never get that. I'm just hoping the bridge itself doesn't get glued. I don't think it will, but you just, you know, with these kinds of operations, you never know what's going to happen. Take the brush here and clean it up a little bit more. It's a wet brush, and I'll go get some clean water. I really want this to be a clean job. Okay, I have cleaned it a couple more times off camera. I'm wiping it up with just a damp cloth now, just cleaning up the whole area. And then I'll wipe it down with a dry cloth, and we'll let her set and percolate for a couple hours. Then I'll come back, check it, and if it's good, we'll put the bridge on, get that glued on, and if not, we'll cut it down and then get the bridge glued on. But we're getting close now. And then I'm going to try to do some very touch-up, fine detail finish repair right around the bridge, because I'd like for this to look just as good as new when I'm done. Okay, so this has been sitting a while. I took the little tiny finger plane and leveled it all off and cleaned it all up real good, because it did swell up in a place or two, and it just feels real good now. I can feel the slightest little bumps with this finger plane and just knock them down. And it feels real good. And that also has the surface, you know, with a little bit of texture, so it's going to stick real good. I'm going to go ahead and get the glue on here, and I've already cleaned the back side of the ebony up good, and everything should be a go. Again, I like to paint it back and forth and get rid of all the little tiny air bubbles. And yeah, I didn't drill the holes. I could have drilled the holes first, I guess. Probably wouldn't have been a bad idea. But I don't think I'll have any trouble drilling them this way either. I think I really wanted to see where the intonation wound up, because if you remember, this is the one where the intonation was off. That's the reason for the original bridge removal. And I just want to make sure there's going to be plenty of clearance and stuff. You know, I don't know. You could do it in any order you want to do it in. I'm just choosing to do it this way. Then I know I won't have a problem. Other than it's just a little bit harder to do the work. I could have drilled it easier on the drill press, but I can drill it by hand without any real issue. The only reason I'm cleaning that off is so I can see it real good, the edge, where I know where I want this. It's going to float around on me a little bit. I'm a little concerned about that, because it's kind of level. That doesn't really have a indentation to sit down in. That's my biggest concern right now. So what I'll probably do is just let it get good and tacky before I put the clamps to it. In fact, yeah, it's really looking good on the way. Just without any pressure at all, you can see that it's sticking really well. By taking it off there like this, I think we're getting it really tacky. It's going to be a trick to keep that still without it moving. That's not as easy to do as you might think. It's really flush with the finish right now. there's no finish on there, so the finish isn't going to hold it in place like it does when I cut the finish out. I might give it another couple of minutes before I even put the clamps on it, trying to get it to tack up just a little bit more. Well, I just kept taking my time and working it down, and it seems like it's perfectly in place. I think I let the glue get just tacky enough where it wouldn't wander. Now I'll clean it up and make sure, because it might have slid and I just didn't realize it. But as far as I could tell, it looked like it went down perfect. I can't get in the groove there. At least I'm pretty sure that's just glue right there. Yep, it's just dried glue, or glue that's starting to dry. So I just got to get that out of the way. Looks real good. Looks real good. Pretty happy with that. I was a little concerned there for a little while because there wasn't much to keep it still. Well, that's looking pretty darn fine to me. Take a dry towel now and dry it off, and I think we're good to wait till tomorrow and see what it looks like. Well, another day is dawned here. The bridge is on solid. Everything looks real good now. There's a lot of scarring around here. I'm going to try to address that before we're done. But right now I'm going to turn my attention to this area. This got lifted up when I was taking the heel off here, the neck, or the fretboard extension, I guess I should say. Anyway, I'm going to get some glue under there and get a clamp on this to get that stuck back down. So I have it wedged up here, and I'm going to throw some glue back under there, and then I'll take my trusty paintbrush and try to slosh it around back under there. That should be fine. It's really not a high stress area or anything. And then I'll just put a piece of plastic over this, and maybe a little wood block too, something like that, and then we'll get her clamped down right there. That should do. So we'll let that set a little while. While this is being stuck down there, I'm going to take some clear brushing lacquer, and I'm going to touch up some of these spots and see what happens here. And right away I'm not happy with that, because some of those spots are a little white-like, and that didn't darken them. So I'm going to just wipe that back off, and I'm going to try something else. So I've got a little bit of amber shellac. I'm just going to put a teeny drop on my brush, just trying to get a very minimal amount on here and see if it'll darken these spots up and if they'll go away a little bit. Yeah, it's a little better than it was, but it's still not great. I'll let that dry and then maybe do a little sanding on that, see what that looks like. While this is all drying, including the little finish touch-up I'm doing there, I'm going to let that set off to the side, and I'm going to be working on the neck, cleaning up this area here. I could probably leave these things on there and they'd probably go back in place, but you never know with changing the angle and all that. I'm going to just get rid of it and make it clean. That's probably your safest bet in this case. I'm trying not to actually cut the ebony. I'm just shaving off the little scabby pieces of wood that got stuck here. Probably do better with a chisel in some places, like right up against here. And then I'm gonna just clean up all this area too and get all the glue off there mainly is what I'm doing. And then I'll show you what the next step is after I get that all cleaned up. One of my suspicions is that there was a loose joint a lot, because I'm seeing a lot of glue buildup here, and I'm scraping all the glue off, trying to get it down to bare wood, but I'm trying not to remove any wood. I just want to clean up this joint and clean up the joint on the neck block area of the guitar, and I just want to see how these things fit together, because I have a feeling it's going to be a very loose joint, because I am cleaning off a lot of glue, and it's just glue that I'm cleaning off. There's, I'm not taking any wood with it, and I have a feeling that's going to be the issue here. That's probably why the neck creeped over time, because glue will allow the neck to creep. For you enthusiasts out there, you can see there's some writing on the back of this, and it says, I'll turn it this way, that's the way you need to read it, and you can probably read it there. It says HD 28 and it's got like 626, so I don't know if that's a, how many necks they made or something. I really don't know. Or maybe they matched that up somehow to the instrument with that 626. I don't know. I'm going to try to get all the glue off of here, and I've been working at it about 5 minutes now. I'll probably keep working at that until I'm satisfied that it's all down to bare wood. Thought I'd show you one more thing. It does have the non-adjustable square tube truss rod there. Just thought I'd show you that. Well, it's been a little while here, and I got back to working on this neck joint. And by the way, it does say 626 there, so that is how they line up the neck with the block. Anyway, I'm going down through here, just peeling off the glue. Again, I'm not cutting any wood, at least I'm not trying to cut any wood. I'm trying to just get rid of the glue, and there is quite a bit of glue buildup here, so I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty loose joint. At least that's my suspicion. I'm suspecting that glue creep is what's caused the problem here. Yeah, there's a lot of glue in there, and I'm going to have to take a lot of time to get all that out of there, and you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing anyway, so I'll get that all finished and then I'll show you the next step. That's just a smidgen of all the glue I'm getting out of this joint, and I took about the same amount off the neck heel. This is nowhere near all of it, but there's a lot of glue in here. In fact, there's a bunch more just in here right now, and you can see all that glue, and you can see that that's coming out pretty clean. There's almost no wood with that at all. It's just glue. Again, these are just my suspicions. You understand, I have not touched the neck back into this since I took it out. So I don't know if the joint's going to be loose or not, but I suspect it will be very loose. And once I get it cleaned down to bare wood, we'll test it and see. Well, my friends, it's time to find out. Is this neck joint loose or not? And I don't know. I have not touched the two together yet since I took them apart. So here we go, the very first time to stick it in here, and let's see if it's tight or loose. My bet is loose. That's pretty loose in my book. Yeah, that should go in there, and in my opinion, it should go in there and not move at all. And it wiggles pretty good. Yeah, you can see it just falls apart. Like on my instruments, I can pick up the whole instrument with this neck. There is no way that's going to pick that up. It just flops around in there. And I am, you might say, well, you cut too much wood away. Well, I really didn't. I don't think I cut any wood away at all. In fact, there's evidence that proves that. There's writing right here on the sidewall, and you can still see the black writing there. If that was If I had cut away wood, I guarantee you that would be gone, because the writing doesn't penetrate into the wood. It's only on the surface. So I feel very confident that I did not remove any wood, just remove glue, and yet that neck joint is pretty sloppy in my opinion. You know, even if I had removed a little bit of wood, it wouldn't be this sloppy. Look at this, you can lift it up out of the hole even. It's just not good. You know, the reason there was so much glue in there is, of course, it was filling all that cavity. And you can't rely on glue that way. Glue is incredibly strong when you get the joint very tight, where everything is meshed together. That's why I say squeeze the glue out, all the glue out that you can. I'm a proponent of that. I'm not the guy that says you're going to starve the joint. I've never seen a starved joint ever. Clamp it as tight as you can clamp it without deforming the wood. That's the thing to do. And your glue joint will be far better for it. This one is exactly opposite of that. There was lots of airspace in here, lots of glue in there, and over time that glue creeps. And that's why we're resetting the neck on this now. So what am I going to do to fix that? Well, I got a plan. My plan is I'm going to cut me some mahogany strips and glue them right to this right here. Then we're going to fit it down into this joint, and we'll be using carbon paper to transfer the marks. And anywhere there are marks, we will scrape away until we get a very tight fitting joint where you can pick the whole guitar up with a snug fit. When you get that, then you won't have trouble with your neck down the road. So that's my theory, that's my opinion, and I'm going to stick to both of those. Another test I haven't done yet is just sitting the neck in here, you know, like it is, not really changing anything, and seeing what the angle is, because I have a feeling it's going to be a lot better now because it can hang down. Yeah, it's almost clearing the bridge. So, you know, it's not clearing it, I'll be honest, but then again, you got to remember I put a taller bridge on here. But it's very close to clearing it. In fact, it's only, you know, maybe a 64th from clearing it. So we're pretty good shape. It's not going to take much, you know, carving on the neck heel here to get it in the right shape. Just a teeny bit, and it'll be ready to go. Yeah, in fact, it kind of is right there. It's kind of clearing it right now just by resetting it in there. So it's not going to take much. So we're not going to worry too much about the angle. We're just going to worry more about a tight fitting joint and getting it in there really snug. Well, I've got two shims made, and I didn't actually check the thickness of these yet. The thickness is probably 50 thousandths, I'm just guessing, 67 thousandths. So that's pretty thick. We know that's too thick. That's okay, that's a place to start. So I'm just curious, you know, how badly it will look if I stick it in there with these two dry shims and see how far down it goes. Well, to my surprise, it actually goes in further than I would have expected. I didn't think it'd go that far. I'm going to try this differently. I'm going to try putting these on here where they don't move and turn the guitar over and stick it on there this way to make sure that I gave it a fair check. Yeah, it's within a ½ inch of going already, and that's pretty amazing to me that those shims are that thick and it's that close to going. I was going to take them down to 15 thousandths each, but now I think that's way too thin. I think these need to be quite a bit thicker than I ever would have guessed. You know, like I said, they're 65 thousandths on that one, and you know, 67 thousandths on that one. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take them both down to 50 thousandths and see how that fits. I've taken them down to 52 thousandths of an inch, and I'm going to set this on there and see how it goes. Is it going in there? Well, It's going in there, but it's not cooperating with me very well. Let me try it again. It's about 3/8 from going. But what's bothered me is that there's still a lot of play in it. So that's not good. That's not good at all. You would think that with those shims in there, that'd be really tight, but it's not. And I'm really wondering why. And it's hanging to this side. It's when you put it in there, it falls off and goes that way. And I'm pretty sure that's the case. I'm going to double check down the center and see where it's at. Yeah, well, it's actually running more center than I thought, so that's not too much of an issue. It is going that way a little bit, but not as much as I thought. Well, that's got me puzzled why that's so loose. I think what I'm going to have to do is go ahead and glue these on and let that set up, and then start my carbon paper and carve it down to that. I think these are the proper starting point for what we need to do. So let's go ahead and get started, I guess, with the glue. Okay, take the old trusty Titebond and smear it around on here. Smear it around on there. Take a paintbrush and move it around a little bit. Make sure that we get good full coverage. Again, swirling the brush around, making sure I don't get any air pockets. It's very important to get rid of the air. You want glue to glue. No air bubbles at all. Alright, I'll just set that on there temporarily and it'll stay. And then this one here, there's a slight angle to them. I can tell which way they go by that. Okay. Alright, so I'll get some clamps going on that and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a minute. There's how I've clamped it up. You know, some people would say, well, just stick it down in this joint. That would clamp it, and you could do that. I have actually done that, but there's a couple of risks with that. Number one, if the joint's not fitting well, and this one's not, it won't squeeze this evenly. Number two, if there is glue squeeze out inside here, you could actually glue the neck in prematurely, and you don't want to do that. So it's safest to just do it the hard way, which is what I'm doing. It'll work either way, but whenever I have an option of saving myself a future hassle, well, I'll save myself the future hassle. There you go. I think that's as good as it can be clamped. So we'll give that a little over an hour to set up and we'll move on. I'm back to touching up the finish, and I'm going over the scars with this brushing lacquer, just trying to get them filled in a little bit. You know, it's one of those deals where you have to make it look worse to make it look better, and that's kind of where we're at right now. It'll probably never be 100% factory perfect, but we want it to make it look like it's in pretty good shape. You know, we don't want to see a bunch of scars and things. And that's looking pretty good right now. That's as good as I would have expected at this stage. There's some right here on this end that probably needs to be touched up. We'll call that good enough for now. There is a hairline crack in this. It's very small, and honestly, there's not a chance of getting good wood glue in there. I'm not even sure that the CA glue will penetrate this tiny crack. It's very, very small. But I'm going to give it a shot. Nozzle's tripping me up here, so I'm going to have to do something else. Try this one. This one's a little easier to control anyway. See if I can get this one in here. There, now it's running out too fast. Just with the CA glue, you never know what you're going to get. It's usually not what you want. That's the only thing you know for sure. I think it went in there fine, and we're going to spritz it from a long way off. That should make it work. And we'll sand and buff that out, clean that up. Just trying to get rid of every little woe I can get rid of while we're doing this. I believe these shims have dried long enough. They're not completely cured, but that's not necessary. All I need is them to stay in place while I'm working on it, and I can move on to the next step now. And I'll show you what that is here in just a moment.